MLA Lawrence, Mr. LeBlanc, Honorary Colonel Brooks, Lieutenant Colonel Bandett, Lieutenant Colonel Clapperton, distinguished guests, fellow serving members, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and veterans, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I would like to begin today's event by acknowledging that the land upon which we are gathered today is Treaty 4 land and home of the Métis. Today is a historic moment in the history of our city and the province. The unveiling of a plaque remembering George Price, a citizen of Moose Jaw, and the last Commonwealth soldier to be killed in the First World War. Price was originally from Nova Scotia and had moved here to Moose Jaw. While he fell afoul of the law, and shortly after a short sentence, he joined the local battalion, the 210th Frontiersman Battalion of the Canadian Expeditionary Force. After a few transfers through the replacement battalions, he ended up with the 28th Battalion in France. In the closing minutes of the war, he was killed by a sniper just a month before his 26th birthday. It is for that reason that he is unfortunately remembered, and a reason that we are going to mark that sad event today. It is my honor now to invite the MLA responsible for military relations, Mr. Greg Lawrence, to the podium for his remarks.
Thank you, Brad. Good morning. Welcome to see all our friends here, MLA McLeod, counselors, our military, our retired military, our friends from the Anavets and Legion, and ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to begin today by acknowledging that the land we are on is Treaty 4 territory and the homeland of my people, the Métis. We acknowledge the land in an act of reconciliation to those whose traditional territories that we are on. My many thanks to our veterans joining us today. Thank you for your service. And thanks also to the Friends of the Forces Fellowship and all of those involved in this initiative. Our government, your government, remains committed to honoring and remembering the efforts of those who serve and have served our country. To that end, and in my capacity as military liaison for the province of Saskatchewan, I am grateful for the many conversations and opportunities I've had to work with veterans and their families. Today, I'm honored to be here on behalf of Premier Scott Moe and the government of Saskatchewan as we gather to unveil this commemorative marker for George Price. For as long as Canada has been a country, there have been women and men defending it, in defense of our country and our freedoms. Many of them have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Private George Lawrence Price is among them. A railroad switchman and a resident of Moose Jaw, Private Price enlisted in October of 1917. This First World War was brutal and bloody with an extremely high casualty rate. While Private Price had endured and managed to survive, he was the last Commonwealth soldier killed just moments before the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Tragically, with the armistice finally signed to end the years-long conflict, Private Price was shot and killed by a German sniper. He had lost his life just minutes before our world could return to peace. Private Price was a young man full of potential. He wrote to his family often, his sister, his mother. He was just 25 years old. There were many casualties in the Great War. Parents lost their children. Spouses lost their partner. children lost their parents. The death of Private Price, however, stands out. Some have described the circumstances of his death as the symbol of the futility of the conflict. The war was over, but he didn't know it. This good and conscientious soldier was just doing his job. The knitted flower he wore that day, still stained in his blood, is a painful reminder. There are moments, modest memorials, and lasting tributes to Private Price. And with this addition to Crescent Park, we in Moose Jaw can acknowledge his sacrifice in a way that champions his memory. We, and all who pass by this site, will remember him. Thanks again to all involved. This edition allows us another opportunity to once again commit ourselves to preserving the memory of the fallen and to ensure that we never forget the sacrifice of those who came before us. Thank you.
Thank you, MLA Lawrence. For more information on the plaque, I invite Mr. Roy LeBlanc, Chair of the Friends of the Forces Fellowship, to the podium for his remarks.
Thank you, sir. Morning, everyone. Morning to all of our guests to this ceremony to honor George Price. It is a huge honor to have you all here today. The Friends of the Forces Fellowship was organized in 2010 as the 15 Wing Fellowship through the efforts of Honorary Colonel retired Douglas Marr, an effort to strengthen the relationships between the military community at 15 Wing and the community of Moose Jaw. Our vision for the fellowship is committed to improving the lives of serving retired military members and their families and military organizations in Saskatchewan, as well as offering assistance to relative community projects. The fellowship mission has always been dedicated to enhancing ties between 15 Wing and the citizens of Moose Jaw and area through fundraising projects, community events, and other endeavors that showcase the Wing and its benefits to the community. The George Price Memorial has been in the works for almost 2 years and was actually the vision of Mr. Lyle Johnson, who first presented it to the fellowship. Had full support from the fellowship right from day one. During this time, there have been many people, organizations, and local businesses who have came forward to support this project. At this time, I would like to thank everyone, and if I will read your name, if you could please stand. Deputy Mayor Kim Robinson, Councillor Jamie Logan, Acting Commander of 15 Wing, Lieutenant Colonel Dennis Bandette, Acting Wing Chief Master Warrant Officer AJ Latta, Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Clapperton, Commanding Officer Royal Regina Rifles, Tim McLeod, MLA Moose Jaw North, Sharon Erickson, Past President, Branch 59 Royal Canadian Legion, the representatives of the Moose Jaw Anavettes, Don Perdington, I know there was a few of you that showed up, thank you very much. Linda Gale Ross, Crescent Park Foundation. Derek Blass from the City of Moose Jaw Parks and Recreation Department. Members of the Legion Color Party led by Steve Richardson. Our guest speakers and Major Brad Racina, formerly of Moose Jaw Dragoons. Also to our sponsors, please stand. Dana Chamberlain and Blake Seaback of Jones Parkville Funeral Home. They were the sponsors of the plaque. Rob Walchuk of Walchuk Masonry, the placement of the memorial stone. Garth Hampson of Ottawa and formerly of Moose Jaw, he was a financial sponsor of the celebration and plaque. Moose Jaw Co-op Association and Carrie Freilich of the Fellowship, sponsors of the reception luncheon. And also to our members of the forces in the Fellowship who took part in this plaque, Lyle Johnson, the chairman of the George Price Memorial Celebration, Rob Nesbitt, Carrie Freilich, Phil Adkins, Ron Walter, Gord Johnson, Ken Hawks, Joyce Walter. Thank you very much to everybody. Without your support, we couldn't have made this happen. We really appreciate it. In closing, I would like to thank everyone for taking part in this very special day, and also to our past and present military members, thank you for your service to this country. Muchly appreciated.
It is now time for the unveiling of the plaque. I'll have Mr. LeBlanc and MLA Lawrence come forward to do that, please. It is an honor to invite Honorary Colonel Randy Brooks of the Royal Regina Rifles to speak. The Rifles are the present-day regiment that perpetuates the 28th Battalion in which Price served. Colonel Brooks.
Thank you, Brad. MLA Lawrence, other visiting dignitaries, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be able to speak about Private George Price. And I would like to do so as the honorary colonel of the regiment that perpetuates him and his unit, the 28th Battalion. We, the CO and I, wear his hat badge as on our uniforms as our collar dogs. I would like to speak from a soldier's perspective. So I entitle what I'm going to say today, Cold and Hungry. George Price was like every soldier, having survived the big 100-day push, 164 kilometers from Amiens to Mons. It was a rainy Monday morning, and George clearly would have been cold and hungry. Cold, hungry, and tired. Dog-tired, like soldiers always are. Tired of pushing forward long distances unopposed, followed by short distances of violence and sheer terror. He was ready for it to end. He would have heard rumors that the war would end soon, and that would have put everybody on edge, not wanting to risk dying in the last days of the war. Right in sight of the final objective, the city of Mons. But George and his battle buddy, Art Goodmurphy, likely hadn't heard about the 11 a.m. ceasefire, for they had left earlier in the night on a patrol to sweep through some buildings sitting across a narrow canal in the Ville-sur-Haine area to look for German soldiers. They moved from building to building, one covering, the other moving, and they sprinted across a narrow footbridge, and they kicked in the door of the nearest building to get under cover from machine gun fire. There they were safe, as long as they stayed put. It was 4 minutes to 11 a.m. on the 11th of November. And they would have stayed there and rested, but for some unknown reason, unknown to us, but perhaps because he was the leader of the patrol. And it sounds unusual that a private should be a leader of patrol, but remember, this was the end of the First World War, and virtually every person who was of any rank at all would have been killed, wounded, or missing. And so he led this patrol. And perhaps because he was the leader of the patrol, George chose to get up he decided to break cover. He exited the building in order to commence clearing the next building in line. It was to be his last act, for he was felled by a single shot, a sniper's bullet through the heart. He died at 2 minutes to 11 a.m. on November the 11th. It is said that he died in the arms of a civilian woman who came to his aid. For sure, 2 minutes later, the church bells of Mons, that had been silent throughout the entire war, rang loudly throughout the community, heralding a return to peace. George never got to hear them. And as was said earlier, when they opened his tunic to administer to his wound, they found that he was wearing underneath his uniform a crocheted flower that was sent to him by his fiancée back home. That flower, still soaked in his blood, made its way back home to the family in Canada 100 years later as a tribute from the grateful people of Ville-sur-Haine. A monument to George was erected in 2018 at the foot of the bridge where he fell. The people of Belgium remember him, and by this memorial here today, we remember him. Rest in peace, George Price, the last Allied soldier to die in World War I. And as an ironic footnote in history, George is buried in St. Symphorien Cemetery, not far from where he fell. And close by his grave is the grave of the very first soldier to fall in World War I, side by side.